People of Reddit who work in a casino, what's some of the saddest moments you witnessed? We used to have a woman who would be on the blackjack tables for 5 days nights straight. Her husband would call and tell her that her kids wanted her home. Her boss actually came to the casino to try and get her to leave. She was missing work. I don't know what happened to her, but she's probably ruined her life. We also had a few regulars commit suicide and a few go to jail. In general, people who come for the first time and are super nice and friendly. They don't care about winning or losing much, just came to have fun. They come back a few more times. Then after a few years they're regulars that don't smile anymore. They don't laugh. They don't count their wins, just their losses, and sweat every comp point they earn and act like gambling is their job now and the focus of their life. I've seen more than one person have this happen to them. The other saddest thing is when a regular stops coming in and their spouse comes out and tells us they passed. We're almost family with some of our regulars and it hurts to get that news. It's been about 15 years. But I worked in one for about 4 years. The one that stands out was a woman who came from the country to the big city to get Xmas gifts for the whole family, including young kids who still believed in Santa and all of that, but spent all of the Christmas money at the casino before going to the mall. Also, a few years later I went back to visit, and when talking to one of the pit bosses about who was still there and whatnot, she told me one of my old regulars, who was actually nice and likable, a rare trait in that business, had recently committed suicide as a result of gambling too much. I worked at a casino as a dealer through college. A lot of incidents were pretty sad, especially with regulars that you liked. One regular would tell me about his middle school age kids, and then I would realize the next week or so later that he was missing their school plays, recitals, etc. because he was at the tables. I remember working an overnight one Christmas Eve and begging him to go home when 6/7 am rolled around because his kids would be up and opening presents. Other times just people screaming at you for stealing their mortgage payments from them that month, then seeing them back again the next day. My mom works as a dealer at a casino and has told me multiple stories of grown men wearing adult diapers at the table so they don't have to leave to use the restroom. Former valet at a casino. The amount of daily regulars who drove barely functioning vehicles full of trash, roaches, and rats who would actually valet their car and go gamble away any money they had to their name was honestly depressing. The saddest I remember was a 90-plus-year-old lady who drove a 91 Corolla, and when we got in her car we realized she had no power steering fluid at all and her steering wheel would barely turn. I have no earthly idea how her frail arms could turn it. We went and bought her some before she left that evening. During my 8-hour shift, a gentleman won $15,000 on a slot machine. Punched out at end of shift and had the next 2 days off. Returned to work after my weekend to find the man still sitting at the same slot machine. He had been there for 2+ days losing $15,000. I did casino security for 3 years before I became a police officer. Had a code M. Medical. Early one morning. Around 4 or 5 am. Old guy in his 80s passed out and fell out of his chair. Wife sitting next to him. I was the first to get to him. Did a quick assessment and found he didn't have a pulse. Immediately started CPR. The old lady looked over and said, "Oh, he does this all the time. Don't worry about him." Between chest compressions. I told her he wasn't breathing and she just kept playing her a lot machine. She didn't miss a spin even when the paramedics took him away. I saw her again the next night and asked how he was doing. With the straightest face ever, he said, "Oh, he never woke up. I'm sure he's in a freezer by now," and went right back to the same machine she was playing the night before. Worked in a casino for about 7 years, and the one that has always stuck with me was when a kid, 18/19, came with his friends and lost $100 playing blackjack. Then he was sitting there, looking dejected and watching his friends win. He left and came back with another $100. I could tell from the way he was acting he probably didn't have the original $100 to lose, so he definitely couldn't afford to lose another $100. So I asked if he was sure he wanted to play. He nodded his head and solemnly said yes. Unfortunately he lost that money too. A previous boss of mine worked at a casino in AC. He said he saw all kinds of terrible things, but the worst was when they had to close the main lobby cause a guy jumped from the 4th floor after losing. We had to evacuate and close down for the rest of the day due to a burst pipe causing no running water. When I walked outside, there was an elderly lady throwing a legit tantrum in the parking lot. She was on the ground kicking and screaming. Her screams sounded like something you'd expect from someone who just lost a family member, not someone who had to leave the casino for a few hours. I left, but some of the security who were dealing with her told me later she was too upset to drive home and they had to call a family member to pick her up. I've seen some it. A lot of what others have commented is fairly common, but this was definitely the most messed up. A woman approximately mid-30s dancing her ass off on the dance floor of the nightclub and suddenly dropped dead. I watched her die. All the time a VIP booth was packed. Drinks flowing. Everybody picking on the guy that passed out. End of night comes and they tell us he is going to need a wheelchair. Not uncommon. Guy was dead a good hour. The deaths always bug me. Casinos get a treatment similar to airports. The unspoken rule is to treat them as if alive until they get off the premises. Even if they are an hour dead, the goal is to get them out as quickly as possible without freaking out the patrons. New Year's was always stressful. It was never a question if someone would die that night. It was a question of how many. A good year would be one. One year we had 4. I don't work in a casino, but live near Atlantic City. Seeing unattended children playing near the entrance to the casino floor where children aren't allowed. You brought your kids to a casino where kids aren't allowed and just left them in a hallway. Grandmother, mother, and daughter heading to the casino by car from 2 hours away. Mother had a postcard to get a free cast iron pan for showing up. Daughter is more than 8 months pregnant. 1 hour away from the casino, daughter starts to have labor pains. Mother won't stop and take her to the hospital. She's gotta have that $10 pan. They arrive at the casino an hour before the promotion was going to start. Other raises all hell trying to get her pan, but the workers for the promo haven't arrived yet. Daughter ends up having to be transported by ambulance to the hospital. All over a $10 pan. It's not the big things. It's the little things. You see someone rocking 3 machines at 9 AM on a Tuesday. They have places they ought to be. Not in this casino. Thanksgiving. Christmas. Hell. Even Mother's Day. Places slammed. Go home, people. There were these 2 middle-aged Greek or Cypriot ladies who were always on the slot machines. Every day when I started my shift they were there, and they were there when I finished 10 hours later. And still they're in the same clothes the next day oftentimes. They were super nice and always polite to the staff. One day they hit the jackpot and win big. I think it was either UAQ 15k or UAQ 45k. It was a good few years ago now. Everyone was overjoyed for them. Except the managers, obviously. Well, the managers then gave them free meals at the restaurant and an open bar tab until every single penny of that money was clawed back into the casino. Not a casino employee. My story comes from my time in the military. Slot machines are everywhere in Germany. The small post I was on had a few slot machines in a back room of the bowling alley. One of our uncos would go every payday and blow his entire paycheck over lunch. We would know if he won or not by the mood he was in after lunch. When he won, he would tell us about winning $600 after dropping $1,500 into the machine. I wasn't a casino employee, but I was an EMT in a certain beach town on the East Coast that could be described as bargain bin Vegas. On a given shift we would probably field 3 or 4 casino calls. More in the summer. It was pretty soul crushing. Most calls were alcohol related or obvious slip and fall scams. But occasionally we would happen upon some real tragedies. Suicide attempts, ODs, rapes, assaults happened with depressing frequency. This one sticks with me the most though. One day we had a call for a woman in her 70s sitting at the slots experiencing chest pain around 2 AM. She refused treatment despite being in bad shape. We pleaded and begged, and even had the on-call cardiologist talk to her on the phone. But she was on a streak and wouldn't hear it. An hour later we were back doing CPR. She died right there in front of the same slot machine. With a receipt for $7 in winnings. Super ducked. The amount of employees we had to treat for exhaustion or diabetic related emergencies due to them not having enough breaks to manage their blood sugars was also super ducked. Duck that town. Former poker dealer at a casino. An older gentleman started to have a heart attack at the table. I called the floor person for assistance with the call button. Paramedics rushed in etc. All within minutes. In this instance I am instructed to keep the game rolling by the floor person as he whispered in my ear. 2 hands are dealt and played and a player at the table requested the heart attack guy get moved somewhere else as it is disrupting the game. Another player asked to have his chips picked up and call for the open seat because we have a wait list. I was disgusted. Not a casino, but the most horrible thing I remember hearing about a girl in the army, stationed in GA. She had a newish baby and would buckle baby in the car seat and drive across the bridge to SC to gamble. It gets hot as hell in GA, and this woman one day went to the casino, parked her car on the far side of the parking lot, just past or behind a dumpster. Other patrons remember her getting up occasionally and looking out the door but being there pretty much the whole entire day. That evening when she drove back on base she looked in the back seat and noticed that the baby was clearly in distress. Baby had in fact been dead for some hours, was in very bad shape, eyes bulging, weird bubbles coming out of its mouth. Just damn awful. She left her infant in the car seat to bake to death in the sun while she gambled her military pay away. Not a casino but a charity poker room at a bowling alley where I was a dealer. Guy was pretty drunk and just so bad at poker. Kept losing the max buy-in, $300, and would go straight to the ATM and rebuy. With every rebuy the desperation became greater and greater. I just wanted to tell him to pack it up before he lost more, but that would have probably cost me my job. Eventually I think he must have emptied his bank account. I had never seen someone lose so much money in one night. Z not a casino story. However, in NC gambling hasn't always been legal. A few years ago I was helping manage a local grocery store and we had a regular. She was always pleasant, always got her things and left quickly until the scratch-off dispensing machine was installed. Within less than a month she went from chipper old blonde lady to the strange wrinkled witch at the scratch-off machine. She'd spend her entire month's social security within a few minutes, scurry to the next store to test her luck and come back to me. It was an everyday thing that came out of nowhere. She spent her brother's prescription money and begged me to sell her a Powerball ticket because she might win him some chemo and he'd be thankful. Needless to say, that was one of my last lottery sales. I went to a casino once and in the washroom there was a grown man bawling his eyes out telling me he lost everything. It still haunts me how utterly destroyed this guy looked. Very, very sad. This was 20 years ago and I haven't stepped foot in one since. Don't work in a casino, but I go to a smaller casino here in Vegas where a lot of locals go to play. Lady hits 40k on a Keno game. After she got paid out she was walking around giving all her friends and people she chats with $100 bills. I left shortly after because I just go to buy smokes and play my change here and there, so I'm not sure if she played more that night. About a week later she was in there playing every time I went in to buy smokes, so I'm sure that money disappeared quickly. A couple that used to come gamble at a casino I worked at killed themselves after losing too much money. Same casino had a patron whose son came in to tell her to stop and that she couldn't keep gambling the family's money away. She would easily lose over $10,000 on a lot of days she went in. You get pretty desensitized to the plight of the gambler at your table, but the double suicide and the yelling son stuck with me. I don't work at a casino, but I have family that are farmers in a rural part of my state where a casino was built on an Indian reservation. Many of my family's neighbors bet and lost their entire farms, and my great uncle and his neighbor had purchased a very expensive piece of farm equipment together that they shared that ended up being repossessed because of the neighbors gambling. My uncle was out thousands and was pissed. Guy hit a jackpot for $30k. In my area that is life-changing money. He was supposed to go see his son in a different state. He went to a different casino and lost the jackpot and then some. He didn't go see his son. He didn't go to the job that he makes 2-3k a week at. He stayed at the casino for a week and lost his job. He lost his truck that he was sleeping in. IDK what happened to him after he was evicted for sexually harassing any woman that walked past him. Edit. It should be 2-3k a month, not week. Sorry. Parents used to own a small casino. 15-ish tables, $100 limits. I worked weekends in the cage. Employees were allowed to gamble once off shift. And I watched one guy, after getting off of work around 7 PM, proceed to lose his house payment, car payment, child support, max out his credit cards, everything by the time we closed at 6 AM. I wasn't a huge gambler before that, but seeing that firsthand scared me off of taking any chances in a casino beyond casual playing. Dealt poker in a casino for 3 years. One of my fellow dealers was arrested on the gaming floor during our shift for stealing rake. I had told him a week or so earlier to be less obvious about it. We had clear tip boxes. He had custody of his 4 kids. Emphasis on had. I worked at one in Vegas for about 6 years. Suicides. So many suicides. I worked with a woman who would piss away an entire 2-week paycheck within 15 minutes after getting off work, and then she'd start writing checks and hitting the ATM right after. Her family was ruined eventually, and things got so bad for them financially that her husband killed himself. She got a life insurance settlement or some sort of fund upon his death and blew it all gambling within a month. Her dad died not long after and left her inheritance, and she lost all that within 2 months. No idea whatever happened to her, but she was absolutely insane. Atlantic City around 20 years ago. One of the 3 times I tried gambling in my life. Saw an elderly couple crying while talking to a security guard. They were telling him they had no money to pay the tolls to get home. I remember thinking the security guard was a real asshole. No emotion on his face as he told them they had to leave the casino. After they left though, he announced to everyone who had stopped to listen that the casino had already given them money to get home, which they had turned around and gambled away, putting them back at square one. I don't know what was worse, seeing an elderly couple cry, seeing this dude just jaded by his terribly necessary job, or just seeing that side of gambling. I'm grateful I was never bitten by that bug. I work in surveillance at a casino. You see a lot of sad and ducked up it. Old people dying. Seizures are pretty regular. Fights. Sexual harassment. Had few suicides. People using the bathroom on themselves. Even had to review and export coverage of a girl getting raped for the police. Casinos don't invite the best kind of people. Not a casino, but volunteered at a local fireman's carnival bingo night. 20-something lady was playing quarter per game bingo with roll after roll of silver quarters. I tried explaining to her that they were worth more than a quarter, and she didn't care and kept playing with a look of desperation in her eyes. Never won a game that night. In my mind, she was plowing through a coin collection that her parent or grandparent had carefully put together. Had a player in higher limits whose wife came in telling him that they needed to go to the hospital. Apparently their son had a stroke. He was still there by the end of my shift. Watching the video feed as per outside unit tried and failed to revive a dead guy he found face down in the parking lot, and his wife gets out of the car to see them call it. She didn't take it well. Watched multiple families realize that they'd just lost their life savings. Caught a group of kids, they were all over 18, but none were 21, doing meth in the parking lot. Sent them off with the cops. The conversation with parents when they realized what was going on was not fun. Watched a kid that worked in valet total a handicapped guy's car that had all of his assistive stuff in it. There's more, but that comes to mind. I have to. Bear with me. 3rd day dealing. Fresh out of dealer school. I've been in industry 10 years now. But anyways, I get put on a game called Pai Gao Tiles. Very difficult game to learn, and I loved it. It is difficult for Americans because we are so used to poker rules. In this game, a pair of 4s beats the pair of 10s. Why? Duck you. That's why. Anyways, 3rd day dealing. On a 25-minute game. Guy is betting 50 to 150 consistently for 3 hours. He builds it up to about 3k. Started with about $500. He slides it all on one hand. We wish him good luck. He sets his hand. Excited, showing the table his monster hand. Capital I, the dealer. Pull what's called Jiguntin Bow. It is literally unbeatable. It is the god hand. It is pair of aces. Pair of kings. His hand was equal to pair of queens. Pair of jacks. For you dealers. He had Daibogor Bow. A 99.9% winner in every other instance. He slams the table, chips fly everywhere, and he begins to self-induce vomit. He succeeds. Splatters everywhere. Security is on him within seconds. Banned for life. Whole pit closes due to biohazard. He did not leave a tip. Second story. Dealing about 9 years now. I'm dealing pie gal poker, not tiles like above. Full table. This game involves a lot of pushes, which is why I enjoy playing. $200 bucks at 10-20 a hand can have you playing for 2 hours no problem due to so many pushes. The reason to play this game is the bonus bet. Catching 4 of a kind. Straight flushes. Royal flushes. Pay huge. Even if you lose the hand and have a bonus, the bonus pays. Now the twist is if you bet $5 or more, you get MV bonus, which means if anyone else at the table hits a monster bonus, you get paid some $$ too. 5 players playing. 4 pay bonus and have envy active. The 1 player not playing bonus bets his last $15. No money for bet in the bonus, and wakes up with the best hand possible. 7 card straight flush. No joker. Joker is a wild card used to make straights, flushes or act as a 5th ace. He shows the table. Everyone cheers and is excited because their $5 bet wins them each $5,000. If the man had played it, his bonus would have paid $8,000 to 1. $5 nets him $40k, but he didn't play it, so he shows the table. Look, I didn't play the bonus. I am going to win nothing while you all win $5,000 each through envy. Will each of you throw me $1,000? So we all walk away with $4,000 each. They start screaming at him, shouting, "No. Duck you. How dare you ask us that? We earned this. etc. He kind of frowns and lets out a small sigh. Mucks the hand to the dealer. The table loses IT. No. What the duck are you doing? Take IT back. We'll split. We'll give you the 1,000. Capital I. The dealer. Inside I'm like, duck, yeah bro. Screw those greedy assholes. They all get 5k each off your hand while you win nothing. They call managers over demanding they be paid because he had the bonus hand. But until it is legally set by the player and the dealer reveals it to the camera, the patron may fold their hand freely and forfeit their bet. He walked away shouting back, "Hey, we all could have had $4,000 each, but you wanted to be greedy. It was fantastic. So I guess it's sad for those greedy people." I'm reading these comments and just getting sad. Not a casino, but a hotel attached to a casino. We sometimes have VIP guests who have their room paid for by the casino. Anyways, one of the regulars had to be dragged out by local PD. Turns out he robbed a couple of gas stations to fuel his habit. I wasn't there, but heard about it from the night audit agents. Didn't work in the casinos, but sad story. When I was in college, I worked at Target. The security guard there was a nice man, but whenever he talked about going to the casinos he seems a little too excited, like it was Christmas whenever he would go. I was the manager for the front end, so he and I would talk a lot because he would accompany me as I grabbed all the cash at night so I wouldn't get mugged. That's all he talked about. He went to the casinos about 3 times a week. He was in his early 50s and still lived at home. Being a security guard at Target, in your 50s and living with his mom told me enough. He probably had a gambling addiction and lost a lot. A few months later he stopped coming into work. Found out he finally lost it all and killed himself. Not me. My deal works at a casino. She does the blackjack table. The casinos only close twice a year, Christmas Day and Easter Sunday. They close at midnight Christmas Eve and they literally have to throw people out. 24 hours later they reopen and the same people are waiting to come back in. My wife worked as a manager of the front desk at a casino in Vegas. The thing that bothered her the most was the treatment of the girls that worked on the casino floor. They were actually hired as models, not waitresses. So they were exposed to the most insanely brutal, humiliating body shaming process regularly. They could be fired over 5 pounds or becoming pregnant. And they all lived in complete fear, and the pay wasn't that much. Still not as much as a bartender. References: wife earned her PhD at UNLV for hospitality and tourism. I know I'm late to the party, but I have one that has stuck with me. 5-year employee at a casino. An older couple, 60s, would come in 5-7 nights a week. The casino term is they are avid experienced players, addicted. She would go upstairs to play slots and he would play cards downstairs. A sizable group of executive level casino employees made their way to her machine and asked her to have a quick word in private. She refused to leave the machine. They attempted again to ask her to speak in private, but she very forcefully declined to leave. She demanded to know what they wanted. So one of the members let her know that her husband had a heart attack and he was being rushed to a nearby hospital. Her response, "Give me his wallet," and went back to the machine. Broke my heart. Even when I think about it more than a decade later. He died that night. She didn't leave until the next morning. I had an aunt and uncle that worked in one of the casinos up in Black Hawk, CO. They would see a spike in business when social security and welfare checks came out. Most of those people would gamble away the only money they received once a month. Brother works in a casino. People bring babies all the time and leave them with slightly older siblings in an adjacent gas station rest stop pretty much all day. I don't work at a casino, but at the one and only time I played craps, a man got up and left with a full tray of 20 chips that were his earnings from the game I just joined. Obviously happy and in the mood to spread the wealth of his genius. He placed his arm around me and gave me advice. Nothing more than superstitious dictum through booze. He then left the craps table, a game that grants players the highest chances of winning than any other game in that casino, and walked straight so some roulette type game rigged with extra rules to help the house. He played that for about 15 or 20 minutes before returning to the seat next to me with only a few chips. One night people were playing at a row of slot machines. I don't know if they knew each other, but one in the middle collapses and fell to the floor. EMTs were called and started loading her onto the gurney to wheel her out to the ambulance. The other players just kept feeding the slot machines. Never looked down. Never asked what's up with her. Just kept on playing. Cold,